Kevin Ayers, formerly of the FBI, had then transferred over to, after what, about 2 to 3 decades, transferred over to Dan Kloss and is now working for 3D Metal Konsulting. So we'll have some interesting perspectives there. And let me start. First of all, I know that a lot of places will use the PPAP documentation, which could have anywhere from, say, 18 up to some places mid-20s for the different forms and a collection of supporting areas. Can I get some commentary as to the degree of all these documentations that are on there? And what I think 1994 was the latest revision on some of the PPAP standards. So with that, I know that doesn't necessarily apply to a lot of the other areas, but I'd love to hear your comments on any of these different documents, different phases, and what are the things that you see being considered in the production part approval process that would be included in these documents.
So I would wholeheartedly agree with that. It's even though we're using one standard in automotive, for example, every company is going to modify that slightly for their own needs. And for those of you who are in the additive world and you're trying to comply with this, really need to be working with your customer in detail to know what those things are. You're not doing a part of your approval process, inspection for a certain amount of parts per line. For additive, because of repeatability issues that can happen, your plan has to include inspection for each part. That's what we found out. It include a lot of quality control, more than normal in your normal PPAP.
My experience was doing things in hospitals, and hospitals is a little different from some of these industries because we're making personalized models, like a one-off, So it's very important to have these, practices in place to make sure, and documentation in place to make sure that there's no errors occurring at any stage of the process, from the medical image to the whole final printed product, and we do those quality checks for each specific patient part.
One other thing I might add is that once you have a production cell established in a manufacturing facility, and that cell has been part of the PPAP approval process, really after you start production, really any changes to the design revisions or elements of that cell. For instance, if you move the cell or you change the process in any way, you need to go back to your customer and possibly have to resubmit the full PPAP package or elements of the PPAP package. So once that design is frozen and the production process is frozen, it's very important to stay in close communication with your customer on the consistency and the stability of that manufacturing cell.
Yes, so there's quite a number of factors that need to be taken into consideration, as you've mentioned, the minimum 18 basically pages, documents or something. Which cover a lot of the things all the way from engineering through all the manufacturing process. Let me ask one that I think is kind of an intriguing question, and we'll see who wants to take it. Additive is basically going directly from the electronic file to the part. So you don't have a tool. You don't have a number of different other steps that might be considered normal in a production process. How would you define some of these in the process flow as you're getting through the PPAP records for repeatability and being able to show control of process?
I'll take part of that one. What would have to be established right off the bat, and this is what I read in the manuals, the designs have to be validated and available and checked product back to. And in the additive manufacturing arena, the designs are models, and the models turn into a step file, and the step file turns into a part program that actually makes a part on the machine. So all that has to be backtracked and validated and confirmed. And again, back to the requirements of what that part does, it has to meet the same characteristics and strengths and all the other properties, similar to what the GE did. They converted a casting to a 3D printed part and the nozzle, and that all had to be identified and validated from end to end to make sure it met all the requirements before it went on there. They did it rather successfully, and they are going forward with that and doing the entire aircraft engine.
Yeah, let's talk about the injection mold tool and how it compares to a 3D printing process. So if you think about injection molding, you have material delivery to the injection mold machine. You have the mold tool that's part of the injection mold that is installed into the press, and then part distribution, removal of spews and runners into the final product box. So that would define the general process flow of an injection mold process. But I liken that, in Carbon's case, with 3D printing, we might have our own material that's stored in terms of resin that would be likened to pellets used in injection molding. We would have our 3D printer and its platform, which would be analogous to, in my mind, the injection mold machine and the molding press within the machine. And then there's obviously post-processing involved with additive manufacturing in terms of washing, baking, and other elements depending on the process. So really it's still a process flow plan. There's still control documents that are associated with that, but it's covering a different type of process that is within the PPAP submission. So I like to think of a typical Carbon platform might have 16 parts on a build platform within the printer. I liken this to an injection mold machine that might be a 16 cavity tool that is producing plastic parts.
I would disagree with you slightly in that, because there's all kinds of tooling can mean different things to different people. I still have the jig and fixtures where you need as accurate as the additive can be. The post-finish surfaces, bearing surfaces, and seal surfaces. You're still going to have fixtures, build that into Industry 4.0 and accuracy you need. As an industry manufacturing, one of our defects is that tooling has been considered not as important in a PPAP as the production parts. Garbage in, garbage out. I think we're understanding tooling needs to be made and done in the same way be part of the PPAP process as well.
I really like the way Doug broke it down, actually, like he's able to validate the materials and to make sure that everything is working properly. Like one thing, for example, when I was first getting started in 3D printing and I first got my VAT photomonetization printer for the post-processing, you need to wash the material, an alcohol bath, and like how long has that alcohol been sitting there? Like how often do you have to replace it, and having formal documentation systems in place, like in the hospital setting for things like that.